The gentlewoman yields back. Mr. Graves is recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. It's nice to see you again. I want to raise 3 things with you. Number one, an issue you and I have talked about both at hearings and otherwise, just concerns about the impact of the IIJA when considering things like inflation, supply chain, and construction costs. As a matter of fact, analysis by Federal Highway Administration shows that from when the Biden administration came in till now, we've seen about a 69% increase in cost of construction. And at home, that is on the lower end of what we've seen. We've seen projects come in substantially higher. I think when you add in the regulatory agenda of the administration, you're seeing delays. And as you know, the burn rate of the IIJA dollars is not really appropriate. It's not as fast as I know you'd like to see it. It's not as fast as I'd like to see it. And I think the regulatory agenda, by heaping all of these new regulations, particularly in the environmental space, is slowing things down. So I want to read a quote from our former Democrat governor who just left office in January. He said, "We're slated to receive at $6 billion from that act," meaning the IIJA, over 5 years for traditional infrastructure-related service transportation, and that's going to be very helpful. But we also have to manage expectations. Of that $6 billion, $5 billion we were going to get anyway. So the additional funding is about $200 million a year. Again, that's very helpful, but there are a lot of people who think that the $6 billion is on top of the base funding. It's not. And in exchange for the $200 million we're going to get each year, our match obligation's going to be going up by about $50 million. And so again, the governor of Louisiana, former governor of Louisiana, is saying $200 million a year. You have an inflation rate, again, adding 69% in there. You do the math, that means that Louisiana is actually getting behind, not getting ahead in terms of the legislation, which I know is not an objective that you or I would like to see. Secondly, I've raised with you a number of times the criteria that we have concerns with where you came in and unilaterally, without statutory action, said that in all of your grants, you're going to consider climate change, racial equity, environmental justice, and enhancing union opportunities. Criteria that I have concerns with because of the lack of metrics or specificity. And so translating that into impacts on the state that I represent, Louisiana, according to analysis by Politico, we are one of the 5th worst states per capita. One of the 5th worst states per capita in terms of receiving funding under the legislation. Concerning because a bridge program that former Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney and I wrote is in there that we thought was actually going to help our state. Concerning because some of the Protect Act programs that we also were involved in drafting is in there. Louisiana got zero out of that one, which is designed for adaptation and resiliency. So very, very concerned about what I tell people in Louisiana when folks look at IIJA and expecting it to be positive, whenever the inflation rate results in it actually not being helpful. The regulations are making it difficult to actually execute, which I know aren't all your issue, other agencies giving you environmental obligations. And then at the end of the day, when our home state is one of the 5th worst performers in the country in terms of a per capita receipt. It's very, very concerning. And then the last thing, if in the 90 seconds I'm giving you, if you could just give us a little bit of advice on your thoughts on how we address this growing deficiency in the Highway Trust Fund with the user fee being a static 1993 figure.
I'll do my best to cover that in a short amount of time. I'll start with a point of agreement, which is I think the environment we have with cost escalation just increases the pressure to get projects delivered quickly, get grant agreements signed quickly, and really improve on the pace that I should note is the pace that we inherited, where it's just considered typical to take a year or two. Now, sometimes the project isn't ready to go, but we want to help them get ready to go. I do think that suggesting that the cost escalation can be attributed to the administration's measures flies in the face of the data showing commensurate cost escalations in every developed economy in this sector, although maybe we could unpack that to see at a more granular level how it's affecting a particular region. Certainly want to work with project sponsors in Louisiana to build on the successes that have happened with Lake Charles, I-10, Lake Calcasieu, the natural gas distribution infrastructure, $10 million that came to your district, and the areas where they have been ferries and other areas where Louisiana has been successful. We want every state to succeed as much as possible in getting those projects done that might not have happened otherwise. I won't claim to have a magic solution on the Highway Trust Fund, but I join you in being concerned about it. I think by the time of the 2026 vote on a future, or potential vote on a future reauthorization, that question will really come to a head, and Congress will need to decide whether the user pays principle is the future or whether to continue turning to other sources of funding to fund our roads.
Before I yield back, I just want to commend you. I saw your 3-mile time on the race that you did recently. It looks like your running is getting a good bit better, and just want to congratulate you.
Appreciate you. I was huffing and puffing there, but we made it.
Gentleman yields back. Mr.